now turn up.
What up, is Marcus with Dynasty Football Dads. We are giving away, upside down, Jerry Jeudy signed college jersey. And not only that, the first one, when we hit 1,000 subscribers, we'll be giving it away to one of you guys. But we're going to be talking about Jerry Jeudy today. So a rare, we get to give that jersey away here soon when we hit 1K, but we also get to talk about him. There are some very, very important statistics that show that Jerry Jeudy at least is being undervalued at minimum, and maybe even being widely undervalued by the majority here. And so let's look at Jerry Jeudy's statistics as a whole. He had 52 catches, 856 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Fantasy finish 44. Well, he was above the 80-point threshold, which we talked about previously. But why does that matter? Like, why? That's not a very good statistic line. But for a rookie year, that is actually a fairly decent rookie line. Now, let's compare him to the two most widely valued rookie wide receivers. And that is Mr. CeeDee Lamb and Mr. Justin Jefferson. Now, we look at, you hear those names and you're like, how in the world is he going to compare CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson to Jerry Jeudy? Well, the big difference is Jerry Jeudy did not have the passing game, but let's look at snap percentages, stats, let's look at targets. I believe that targets are one of the most important things that a wide receiver can get, because if you're getting targeted, that means the ball is going your way, of course, duh. But that also means that you're being widely used in that offense. So, Jerry Jeudy had 113 targets, 52 catches. That is a horrible catch rate. Math-wise, that's less than 50% of his targets were actually catches. That shows, and he was actually one of the top receivers that was actually open and actually mistargeted. And that's Drew Lock. That's, I can't even think the wide receiver that became quarterback for a short period of time, Brent Ripken. You can barely even name these guys. So Jerry Jeudy had 52 catches, 856 yards, 3 touchdowns. Lamb, if you guessed he had more targets or less targets, what would you say? In my opinion, I was like, Lamb's probably got maybe 15, 20 targets more, but actually it is the opposite. Oh, hi, Cat. 111 targets. 111 targets for CeeDee Lamb, and he is being he's a fantasy dynasty wide receiver number 10 right now, being drafted in startup leagues. So, but he had 74 catches, 935 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So you had over 100 yards more, or he had about 100 yards more, 2 more touchdowns, and 20 more catches. You could say part of that was Dak Prescott. Part of that was Andy Dalton was even... Can you stop breaking stuff, Cat? Jeez. We can't do a nice video without a cat or the baby crying or something. So, not Justin Jefferson. CeeDee Lamb had Andy Dalton was a better quarterback than Drew Lock, which was sad. I mean, we're going through Denver's statistics here, and you'd be like, wow, Denver's quarterback play was absolutely horrible. But he was on the field for 64% of the snaps. CeeDee Lamb was. Jerry Jeudy was on the field for 75% of snaps. So snap percentage, target share, I mean, you could say advantage Jeudy. But yet Jeudy is not even being close to valued as CeeDee Lamb, which we'll get to. Now, Justin Jefferson, Mr. Rookie wide receiver of the year, second to, of course, Mr. Herbert. But we look at 88 catches, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That is an awesome year. I mean, fantasy finish of number 6. How far was Jeudy away with targets than Jefferson? Was it more? Was it less? Well, it was more, but it was 125 to 113, so 12 targets more. If Jeudy caught the ball like Jefferson, you could say that would be, Jeudy could easily have a 70 catch, 1,000 yards, and 6-7 touchdowns. It's an easy Jeudy season. But his season could be even a lot further. He could have a sophomore step up of having 1,300 yards, easily like Jefferson, or kind of like Jefferson had in his rookie year. And where's Justin Jefferson being drafted right now? Dynasty receiver number 5. I have him as dynasty receiver number 3. And so Jeudy is being drafted as dynasty receiver number 25. So we have a disconnect from 5 by Jefferson, 10 by Lamb, 25 by Jeudy. So Jeudy, who you could say the only issue that he has is at quarterback. Will that change this upcoming year? Maybe with Teddy Bridgewater a slight bit. Will it change dramatically? Maybe not, but there's still Aaron Rodgers rumors that will happen throughout the summer. There's also next year. Opportunity changes drastically. There's 2 seasons I can kind of compare Jeudy to, receivers that I've liked in the past because they had a good rookie year and they were undervalued, which was Deontay Johnson, had a really good rookie year, but yet he was kind of in a muddled mess with Juju and with Claypool there now, and I can even show you kind of the stats per game there, and he became a top 25 receiver, and he was hyper targeted. You're talking about that guy that gets separation. He was number 1 in separation out of the 2019, sorry, I'm skipping years, 2019 class. He was number 1 in average separation on each target, and now you look at Judy, who's very similar, a wide receiver he's a very exceptional out route runner and gets separation. He just needs a quarterback, and that can change very drastically. DJ Moore's another type of wide receiver that was just like Judy, where he started excelling at the back half of his rookie year. You looked into his sophomore year, 1,000 yards, junior year, 1,000 yards. This is something that Judy should easily have a baseline of 1,000 yards. I am surprised he's not higher. Oh no, now my son's starting to wake up. But, so, I would say that right now, we look at even Denver's passing game of last year. 20.2 points per game. That's not good for an offense in general. 21 touchdowns passing. That is horrible. That's like a little over one per game. 23 interceptions. Of course, Drew Lock loves throwing the ball to the other team. More to the other team than he actually does his team sometimes. 3,673 total yards from all the quarterbacks combined. I mean, you could easily see 30 touchdowns out of this offense. I know Sutton's coming back, but I think Sutton can easily be 1A and Judy can be 1B. You can have these two wide receivers be top 20 wide receivers, both of them. You see it all the time. So my big thing is, where do I see Jerry Judy being? He should easily be a top 25 receiver, but you are drafting him at his base. So easily, if you can, let's look at the rookie drafts coming up. Chase, Devontae Smith, you could arguably have over Jerry Judy, but that's pretty much about it. I mean, Jalen Waddle, Rashad Bateman, these are wide receivers I'd rather have after Judy. I'd rather take the sophomore season in Judy because I feel like Judy can take another step up and you can argue having him over Devontae Smith, who Judy was kind of, you could say, probably the alpha in Alabama's offense compared to Devontae Smith. And yes, I think we get scared sometimes by the Henry Ruggs type, and we're like, oh my goodness, what could happen? Or we get scared by some of these receivers that all of a sudden they don't have that jump the second year. But that a lot of times happens when they perform poorly their rookie year. And Jerry Judy has every different stat and statistic that shows, yeah, he's a really good wide receiver and he should be respected that. The biggest question is going to be quarterback. Can they get themselves a quarterback? If Justin Fields is there, you could be arguing that Jerry Judy is a top 18, 17, 16 wide receiver. Right now, Judy's going to be moving into my top 20 for wide receivers. He just has to. He's right now being just way devalued compared to CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. And if he gets down into those early 20s, I'm taking him. I'm easily taking him. And I'm trading him if people are starting to abandon him and they see, oh, Courtland Sutton's coming back. Jerry Judy is an excellent wide receiver. And there's a lot of people that are arguing that he was the 101 going into his last collegiate year. That he was going to be above Jonathan Taylor. CeeDee Lamb wasn't even kind of in the picture at that point, but he was above Jonathan Taylor. He was above J.K. Dobbins, who wasn't super big at that point. He was above DeAndre Swift. There was argument. DeAndre Swift, Jerry Judy, 101 in Dynasty. Where do we go? And that was the argument that we're having with Chase now with some of these players. I don't have the argument. I don't think Chase is up there. But I think that, again, wide receivers sometimes get kind of pushed into some of these values. But if you're talking about if you're talking about 19 and 21, we got N'Keal Harry, number wide receiver 1 and 19, and then we got Jamar Chase. I can't even talk. Jamar Chase, 2021 wide receiver 1 for a lot of people. And we have Jerry Judy. Where does he lie in the kind of prospect, or where does he lie in kind of the hype? He lied really close to Jamar Chase. Was he a top 10 pick? No. Was he a top 6 pick? No. But Jerry Judy was picked, I think, 15 by Denver, so he was a mid-first round pick. He was only drafted behind Mr. Henry Ruggs, which the Raiders love speed. That's just the Raiders doing the Raiders things. So we look at Jerry Judy he's got draft capital, got talent, has, you could say, opportunity. He's just missing quarterback, and I think that dynamic can change fairly quickly. So if you see that he's starting to be undervalued, this is the time to snatch up. And if he starts to be undervalued closer to the year, snatch him up. You know what? Throw 2022 first and say, you know what? Give him that. I want Judy. All of a sudden, Judy will he will exceed those expectations unless he gets hurt. But I think Judy, yes, a little fragile across the middle. doesn't like to get hit like Devontae Smith. But Jerry Jeudy has exceptional separation. And when they're open, yeah, you throw it to you, and that's the big key. And it shows it in the history of NFL. That is like the number one thing. You separate, you get thrown to, and that is a for sure. And Jerry Jeudy is one of the best at that. And that's why Justin Jefferson has done so well in Minnesota. His route running is awesome. And know what he does after his rookie year? He goes and works on route running because he wants to be even better. That is why Justin Jefferson, wide receiver number 3, Skull. All right, so that is my belief on Jerry Jeudy. I love Jerry Jeudy. He's just going to keeps moving up my boards. I think this is the time to buy right now, is because I think people are starting to not abandon ship, but they're starting to so focus on 2021 season that we forget about the 2020 season. And Lamb and Jefferson are like these, oh my goodness, how are you going to get him? And then Judy's kind of like this middle guy of like, he's not Rager, he's not Ruggs, he didn't lose a ton of his value, but he's also in this middle point where like he had a good year. What do you do? And I feel like he's the DJ Moore, the Deontay Johnson types of the last couple of years, where he's going to all of a sudden jump into this. Even Terry McLaurin jump into this like stratosphere where you're like, oh, now he's going to be priced right, and now it's going to be too high. All right, so this is Marcus, Dynasty Fun Dads. Peace out. See you tomorrow.
Now turn up.